Nothing can stop you. Now is your time. Rewrite history. Introducing the Standard Bank Top Women Conference 2021, bringing together a diverse group of global female thought leaders. A space where powerful women band together and rise by lifting each other. Embrace your differences because they are your advantage. Use your voice loud and clear as we unite to not only take our seat at the table, but reshape it. Be the change. Be a top woman.
A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 10th episode of the Standard Bank Masterclass series. Today, we're talking Africa Free Trade Area Agreement. Our purpose as the Standard Bank Top Women team is to create a trusted network of over 10,000 women-owned and gender-empowered companies, linking top 1,000 corporates to 10,000 women-owned businesses. Today, how we've structured our conversation is that we'll be looking at three pillars of the Africa Free Trade Agreement. We'll be looking at a perspective on the policy side of things, and we'll be looking at the micro perspective in terms of the opportunities, and we'll also be looking at the business, the private sector perspective. Our speakers today, we've got Bernadette Colborne, who's the head of trade and supply chain finance for Standard Bank. Bernadette has been with Standard Bank for over 27 years. She's an expert in international trade, transactional product and services, corporate and investment banking. So Bernadette will be giving us the private sector perspective and what big businesses need to do in terms as far as the AfCFTA is concerned. Our next speaker is Yavi Madurai, who really is the expert, the specialist in the AfCFTA, and she's a gender and economic equality activist. Yavi is also the executive director of the Pan-African Businesswomen Association, that is PABWA. Linda will be joining us. I think Linda has problems with technical problems, but should she join us in, Linda is a regional and continental coordinator for youth in AfCFTA PABWA Kenya. Linda is a youth leader from Kenya who was named one of the top 100 most influential young Kenyans 2020. She has won and has been nominated for a couple of awards, including the Young African Leader Awards and the World Economic Forum Young Global Leader. You're welcome to join our community. There's a lot to benefit from, connecting access to markets and accessing a network that can help you scale up your business, or perhaps just mentorship opportunities. Please make sure you join us live on any of our you connect with us on our social media platforms. We've got Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. Now over to our conversation. Before I start our conversation, I just want to give Yavi and Bernadette just 2 minutes each, just for warm greeting and just to tell us what they're looking forward to in this conversation. Bernadette, over to you. Welcome.
Welcome, and thank you very much for that introduction, Babawa. For me, it's important that we drive the small businesses on the continent. I mean, Africa is our home. We drive her growth. And as an organization that focuses on Africa, which is part of our core strategy, I'm excited at this opportunity with the AfCFTA and also from the women on our continent. as well as the youth. And what is it that we can do to drive them to increase economic conditions on our continent and make each and every one of us successful?
Very well put. Thank you very much for that, Bernadette. Yavi, if you can just greet our audience and tell us what you're looking forward to in this conversation.
Sure, thank you, Babawa. Thank you, Bernadette, for that insightful opening. You know, the AfCFTA is quite it's very debated and discussed at all levels, around tables. I've actually just come from a meeting where we're talking about it, and it's that thing that people are trying to figure out. First of all, what is it, and what are we doing about it? And secondly, you know, is it just another African Union thing that's going to happen, and you know, it's going to fall by the wayside, and nothing's going to happen with it? It's our last chance. It's our only chance. It's our last chance in terms of self-sustainability, in terms of trade, not aid, and being able to move to that economic self-sustainability that we want in terms of Agenda 2063. We don't want to carry on as a continent, you know, wanting and expecting aid all the time. So when Africa implements the AfCFTA, well, it's, you know, it came into effect in January. But when it does come into full effect, generally we're looking at 2035, 100 million Africans will be lifted out of poverty. You know, how are we going to discuss now? So that's what I'm looking forward to. But I think that, you know, that says it all to kickstart the conversation.
Thank you very much for that, Yavi. Once again, welcome to our audience. Please make sure you interact. You're welcome to put your contact details in our chats and our questions. We will make sure we take care of your questions at the end of the discussion. As we said, we are talking today AfCFTA, which really is more than just a conscious political decision, but it's a testament of the power of cooperation and a shared vision. The opportunity is set to unlock an economy of $3 trillion. So we are all here to find out how big of a slice of that cake we can get, or rather how we can get some of that. Yavi, I think we'll start with you immediately. What is the role of the free trade agreement, and what is the current status since the implementation of the AfCFTA rules on the 1st of January?
So yes, so let's start with your second part of your question, and then we'll work our way backwards. So it came into effect on the 1st of January 2021. So we're almost 10 months, one day away from 10 months. But it is not in operationalization as yet. It's not in operationalization because certain aspects of the agreement needed to be relooked and reviewed. And they are currently in negotiation at this point in time. So we're looking at various aspects to that negotiations in phase 2, and you're looking at things, and it's being referred to obviously as trade protocols. So currently they are, you know, there's the e-commerce, the digital protocol, the women in trade protocol, which obviously I'm very involved in, youth. You know, there's all different types of protocols that need to be looked at and incorporated into the document or incorporated into the agreement before it can operationalize. The hope is that the operationalization date is the 1st of January 2022, which gives us 3 months. So that's the current status. Obviously, having a free trade area means that 55 countries that have been divided due to the, you know, the eras of colonization that divided us many years ago. Bringing together 55 countries, trade regimes, trade regulations, laws, policies, and the behaviors and practices that have currently, you know, consumed our continent for many decades, hundreds of years. We now have to almost undo that and redo it into the AfCFTA. So it's not going to be easy. It's not going to get done in 5 minutes. Even the operationalization date doesn't mean that it's going to, you know, it's like, wow, it's open. Everyone's going to be, you know, hunky-dory and everything's going to happen smoothly and efficiently. It's not. We cannot expect it to be. So, but having said that, we're a lot further than we thought we would be at any point in time, let alone COVID interrupting us. So yeah.
Oh, so we are a lot further. You're saying 1st of January 2022 will be the operational.
Yes, hope.
Hopefully, hopefully.
Hope.
Thank you for that, Yavi. You could hear the equality activist rising up there. I thought we were going to go too deep. Thank you for that.
No, don't worry.
Bernadette, over to you. Standard Bank and the Standard Bank truly is a bank that calls Africa home, honestly speaking. And you were right in saying that your core strategy is, the AfCFTA and developing Africa as a whole is part of Standard Bank's core strategy. Standard Bank and the AfCFTA were working together to develop a trade finance facility that will support SMMEs to leverage new markets in Africa. Bernadette, could you please explain to us what this means and how SMMEs can seize this opportunity?
Sure, thank you for that. So just to start off with, Sim, who's our group CEO, he was invited by Secretary General Meme to be an advisory on the board. And in this process was born the opportunity for Standard Bank to work with the organization to look at how can we fund the small, medium enterprises, youth, and in particular women through this process. It's no use saying Africa's a home and if we drive the growth, if we're not going to be committed to providing some sort of funding and focusing access to liquidity for the small businesses, youth, and women on the continent. So it's looking at how we as Standard Bank Group can fund this using our balance sheet to support the AfCFTA, which then would provide access to more clients in terms of enjoying the benefits that will be realized through the AfCFTA, through the process where it eventually is in full-fledged on the continent. And I guess that's very important. I mean, it's no point doing this if we're not committed to it. Number one. Number two, we're excited by it. And this is one of the journeys we've undertaken within the AfCFTA. There are so many others. I mean, Yavi mentioned policy, regulators. There's all these hurdles that we need to overcome. And from a Standard Bank point of view, we need to understand in terms of funding and providing our balance sheet to enable the clients to provide access and liquidity is what are those sectors? I mean, agriculture is huge on our continent. COVID has really shown us, I think, and hopefully we take those learnings, that we are a continent that we can drive growth intra-Africa. And how do we do that? And in doing that, Standard Bank has also undertaken to understand what are the sectors that we can support in order to drive intra-Africa growth and to grow this continent to where it should be. There's a whole lot of, Yavi mentioned digitization of customs. We're working together with each country where we're present in, with the regulator to see how we can overcome those. It's all the non-tariff barriers that do exist that we're hoping to drive, which will then also lend support to providing access to liquidity, looking at those key sectors.
Thank you very much for that, Bernadette. Yavi, speaking of youth, are there any plans in terms of capturing the imagination and innovation to bring the youth on board for the AfCFTA opportunities?
Yes, absolutely. So, and Wamkele Mene, the SG of the AfCFTA, he's very clear on, not only just his vision, but in terms of the vision of the AfCFTA, when you look at it from a youth and a woman perspective, just because of the fact that that is the two sectors of society on the African continent that need to be focused on in terms of being able, and also leverage, because there's women and youth that make up the most part of the continent. And if we don't necessarily put opportunities and capacity into their hands, we're just selling ourselves short as the continent. We're not necessarily having all hands on deck. So when you look at what is being done in terms of how to be able to drive certain opportunities, so obviously just in terms of the protocols that I referred to when we started, and Bernadette spoke about the SMEs and, women and youth in terms of the funding. So there's various funding mechanisms that are, everyone is involved in the AfCFTA right now on the continent, whether it's the Frexim Bank, whether it's the AfDB, whether it is just, Standard Bank and various other financial institutions. So that's just the funding capacity and the financial structures that everyone is looking at in terms of how to be able to capacitate. Because remember, the objective is to increase intra-Africa trade. So I want to put this into perspective for you very quickly. I won't be long, I promise. Intra-EU trade, so intra-EU, so across the European Union, intra-EU trade sits at 70%. Intra-Asia trade, at last count, that's like 2020, same as EU, intra-Asia trade sits at anywhere between 65 and 68%. Intra-Africa trade sits at 18%. We have 61% of our raw materials at last count in 2020, 61% of exports, which most of it are raw materials, were exported from Africa to Europe, right? 70% was export of manufactured goods was exported from Europe back to Africa. So Africa is Europe's biggest customer, but we are not maintaining, or we're not accessing or promoting or getting involved or creating infrastructure to be able to ensure that the full value chain of that raw material to finished product is done on the continent and that we trade with each other. So if you take South Africa, wine is one of our biggest export products, and it's one of the best in the world. And I'm proudly South African, so I'm going to say that. So it's one of the best in the world, but we don't it's easier to get wine to the UK than it is to get it to Kenya or Ghana or wherever because of the trade routes. So these are the kind of opportunities now that the AfCFTA brings, because we need to look at creating and fulfilling full value chain so that the product through to end product gets manufactured on the continent. Bernadette, when she speaks about the SME funding and women and youth, that's what they're talking about, is being able to fund manufacturing or processes within the value chain to get it out so that we can export we can trade with each other and export from the continent globally. And that's the way we're going to get more money into the continent.
No, with those stats, Yavi, I can see why you're saying it. The AfCFTA really is it's our last opportunity for economic transformation on the continent, definitely. Given those stats, it's actually quite scary. Bernadette, Bernadette, some experts are saying that, as I said, that it's the last opportunity for the economic transformation, the AfCFTA opportunity. What needs to be done by the private sector to ensure that the AfCFTA works?
Well, I think Yavi alluded to quite a bit of that in her response in terms of the challenges we face. One is content, and Yavi articulated that quite nicely. Content in terms of product. So, I mean, it's easy to import something from China and it says made in China. I can take that label and say made by Bernadette Colborne in South Africa. I'm proudly South African as Yavi, and we do have the best wines, but where do we export our wines to? Not Africa. They go to China, they go to Europe. Why do we not export them into Africa? The other opportunity, as we know, and a challenge is agriculture. I come back to agriculture. Our continent is rich with agriculture. How do we start taking that and providing it across the continent to improve that cross-border trade? What can be done by the private sector? I said from a Standard Bank point of view, I can only talk about Standard Bank. And I'm sure the other banks who are present on the continent, the South African banks and the African banks, do exactly the same. We work closely with Frexim Bank on many fronts in driving intra-Africa trade. One of them is obviously the payment system, which is currently in proof of concept. South Africa is not part of it. Standard Bank is not part of it yet, but I'm sure we will get there. But what can we do in order to drive digitization from a customs point of view? There's inefficient protocols around ports, border controls. lots of paper that moves all over, crime. How do we get to create e-certificates? And we as a group are working with, as I mentioned earlier on, with regulators in our presence markets. We've already engaged with a few countries such as Angola, Botswana, Zambia, in terms of how do we get to that point. They're very open to it. They're welcome in the conversations, but it's always the next step. And this is not something that's going to happen tomorrow. This is going to be a journey. And from a private sector, we need to be part of that journey. We need to make that change happen in order to get to where we want to get to. You heard here, we say 15, 18% intra-Africa trade compared to Europe, 70%. We want to be at that 70%. And as a private sector, we need to commit, put our hands in that whole pie and start driving that. We have also looked at all the intra-African flows across the continent. What is the makeup of that? And we said it's 15 to 18%. What are we going to do to grow that? How are we going to grow that? What are the main corridors across the continent? What are the corridors that are we importing or exporting, mostly importing, from other markets, Asia, Europe? Asia is the biggest. China's our biggest partner from bringing in goods. What can we do to start changing that? Not that we don't want to import from China, it's very key to the continent, but what are we going to do to take that and say, okay, that's quite a huge corridor for us, but what are we going to do about driving the corridor internally? So we've started that work in terms of assessing all those flows and starting to understand it, unpack it, and then starting to filter it in to our various franchises across the continent, as well as into the AfCFTA.
Very well said. Thank you for that, Bernadette. Yafi, and on that note, how can businesses navigate the legal challenges of the AfCFTA?
So they are going to be immense. A country like South Africa, or countries like South Africa and Egypt, are the two countries that are ready at the moment, technically, to be able to start trading under the AfCFTA the moment it becomes operational, purely because we've got such stringent trade policies in place and regulations to be able to do that. So some of the things, so let me start with, before we get to the legal side of it, some of the things that businesses need to understand, first of all, is, does my product form part of the AfCFTA compliance list of products? So currently there are over 4,000 products in South Africa. There are quite a few thousand in terms of Egypt that are ready to go. So that's the first thing businesses would need to do, is look at it and go, is my product there? It's also an opportunity. So let's talk opportunities. So if you want to get into this, go and have a look at those lists and start to understand how to get into those sectors if you've got some kind of inclination towards it, and decide how it is that your business plan. Sorry, I've been touching things I shouldn't be touching on my laptop. So that's the first thing. Then obviously looking at it from a legal perspective. So when we look at the legal frameworks of the AfCFTA, obviously the businesses need to look at, so like Bernadette was saying, so rules of origin is one of the biggest issues under the AfCFTA for obvious reasons. It's exactly what Bernadette said. Because of the influx of products from China, and it's so easy to be able to get it, being able to change labeling and packaging becomes a massive problem in terms of being able to identify rules of origin. So there's going to be, or there's already a lot of work that is going into it from a secretariat and from a AU Trade Commission perspective in terms of how to be able to negate and navigate that particular issue. Because rules of origin are for our benefit. It's to make sure that we are utilizing the stuff on our and being able to do it effectively. So that's why the rules of origin are important. But obviously people want to make money, so they're going to try and bypass the processes. But understand that the rules of origin is something very, very important. Obviously from an SPS measure, standards and quality, branding, packaging, all of those kind of things are going to have to ensure compliance. So as I said, South Africa, which I've just kind of looked at it's the majority of the people on this attending right now. But they are, from a Pan-African perspective, every country is at a different stage of readiness. So every business would need to look at what their government is doing around readiness in terms of the AfCFTA for their particular private sector, and then hold that government department, whether it's a DTI, whether it's a trade and industry and investment, whatever they call it, hold that government department accountable in terms of being able to share information and provide updates and information around what are the next steps. So what are the tangible things that need to be done and the action items? Because having a trade agreement is one thing that's being done in a policy environment. Being able to make it real for businesses, being able to, for the dressmaker who is, or designer, young designers in South Africa, they're all over Instagram at the moment, or Nigeria, Kenya, selling, their wares. How the things that we need to look at as business and being able to come together between business and government to be able to ensure readiness for the businesses.
I'm glad you touched on the issue with business and government, because that's a key dialogue that needs to take place there in order to accelerate the operational side of the agreement. Bernadette, what do you think is there to gain? What is there to gain from the private sector? What is there that the private sector can gain from the free trade agreement?
Well, I think it's access to new markets that they've never had access to before on the continent. For the zero-rated tariffs in whichever countries they might be, I think they're wanting to get it reduced by 90% over a 5-year period, Yavi. I think if that's the right stats, I'm not 100% sure. And what are those sectors that are being focused on? So if you fall into that sector where there will be zero-rated tariffs, absolutely beneficial for each and every private sector that is in that environment. That would be an absolute win for everybody, actually, that's in a particular sector. The other thing is with Standard Bank involved in AfCFTA, and you all know AfCFTA, their strategy is to drive intra-Africa growth, and we work very closely with them. We also are partnering at the Dubai World Expo 2020. It's actually 2021 now, in October it will take place. Standard Bank is co-sponsored in order to create a platform for private sector, but specifically looking at women in business, to then network with the broader community in terms of, it could be a global community and it could be a community from the continent. So you would get access to all these benefits in terms of growing business, accessing new markets. And if I can also add, Standard Bank also has the capability of providing you with the platform that enables a client to advertise their business online, which will reach many destinations. We have a few countries in Africa that are on the platform, as well as global countries, and you could reach 17,000 potential new business partners. So there's also that opportunity, aside from accessing the agreements that's obviously been implemented and hopefully come to fruition soon, but it is a long journey. So there's many ways that it will benefit the private sector in this space.
Thank you, Bernadette. It seems like only those that are really informed can really leverage from this opportunity, number one. Can you touch on the education side of it for us, maybe, Yavi? If you can just tell us about the education side of it. Is there a plan in place to equip entrepreneurs across the continent? Do people know where? Hello?
A plan in place from who? Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Hi.
So
I'm saying a plan in, yeah.
From the African Union, so, is there a plan in place where do businesses know how to access the information? Do they know what the barriers are? Is there a way in which they can check the status of the current agreement and know how?
So if there is an actual comms plan in place, I'm not sure. I haven't seen anything. But if you have noticed in terms of what has been going on, so let me break this down into two parts. So the first part is that from an African Union perspective, from an AfCFTA secretariat aspect, you'll see that there's a lot of, meetings going on. There's a lot of, if you follow it on Twitter, LinkedIn, and, that's the joys of social media and being able to have access to information, is that there's a lot going on at this point in time because of the negotiations. There's meetings between the Secretariat and all the various organizations that have come together. Pabua, for example, has been driving the Women in Trade Protocol very, very hard, the Youth in Trade Protocol very, very hard. So there's lots of meetings happening at this particular stage. Remember, a lot of the information or the negotiations that will finally come to fruition out when it finally becomes an actual protocol, that will then inform state parties. So it will inform the member states, which is, the 55 countries. But obviously, there's only 36 that have completely been ratified, and 54 that are signatories to it. Eritrea hasn't been a signatory to it. So what will then happen is that so now this is where we're at. So this is the status of it, so to speak. So there's a lot that's still up in the air for valid reason, is that those protocols need to be finalized and completed. Once they are finalized and completed, all of the conditions and the compliance and the regulation aspects out of that will then inform the rest of that agreement, and will then have to be put in place by the member states. So liberalization, when you liberate trade like to this extent, it's a long drawn out process. I like to say, I won't be alive, and I'm not that old, but I won't be alive to see the true success of the AfCFTA. But we still have to do it anyway. We still have to give it our all, because if you think about all of that coming together. So in terms of going back to your question around the information, there are various organizations that are doing a lot. This is a platform of communication. We're talking about the AfCFTA. We're sharing information. Bernadette is talking about what's happening from an actual banking perspective. I'm giving you information, on various aspects. So this is one, there's millions, and I'm exaggerating now, but millions of webinars on a daily basis. People or businesses need to be able to sign up, empower themselves to look for that information, to keep themselves in the know, so to speak, so that they know what's happening. They're getting information from all parts. If they want to know more, ask, tweet somebody, send a message, email someone, make sure that you are in the know. The empowerment also about access to information lies with all of us in order to be able to find it. I'm sure Standard Bank is putting out information about the AfCFTA as they are going along. So there's various people that are doing things. We put out information all the time. I'm on 5 webinars at least a week, at least. So, and that's just me. I'm one dot in an entire ocean. So there's lots of information out there. Start by reading the agreement. Start by looking for that kind of information and informing yourself. The websites are there. Online has, you have access to online. We obviously now, the next question is the challenge around the informal sector and getting the information to the informal sector. So that's the next challenge. And the moment those protocols are finalized and we are in operationalization, that is an area that needs to be focused on by everyone, not just the African Union. It needs to be everyone that focuses on it. So that's where we're at.
I think you Yes.
If I could just add to what Yavi said, if you don't mind. So she's already alluded to access to information. The informal sector is a challenge. From a Standard Bank point of view, we have formed a steerco focusing purely on AfCFTA, purely on that. It's our commitment. And part of one of the deliverables is to then start having webinars such as this from a Standard Bank point of view, to then share the agreement, what is happening on the continent, and where is Standard Bank within the process, and what can we do, or how can people access the information. So we will be starting those webinars in due course as well.
Thank you, Bernadette. Thank you, Bernadette. Yavi, you said something very scary there. Just before I get to that comment, to our audience, we've got a poll running at this moment. Please help us just complete some of those questions. Yavi, you said something very scary there. I nearly jumped off my seat. You said you were long on the benefits of the free trade agreement. Does this mean that you, unless you're planning to leave tomorrow or next year, does this mean that you don't think that it's the stimulus that is needed to get us out of the COVID-19 situation?
Oh, no, that's not what I'm saying.
Oh.
We've got a deadline. We've got a deadline to take the 18% that I was talking about earlier to 30% by 2030, 2035. So there is an intentional pressure that everyone is placing, whether you speak to the shippers, the Shippers Council that's based in Cameroon, whether everyone that is in this value chain is putting pressure on it. It's being led, that pressure is being put on himself by the SG himself. So you feel the energy to make sure that you have to push through. To answer your question, the reason I say what I say is because we will see the first entry in terms of being able to see the benefits of the AfCFTA shortly, soon. But practically, let's talk about cross-border trade. Let's talk about being able to get from one country to another if there's no roads. Let's talk about digital connectivity. Poor Linda has not been able to join us today because, her digital access or online access right now, there she is, her online access right now is intermittent. So when I say that, I said the full true success of the AfCFTA, what I mean by that is when we are self-sustainable as a continent, we only are trading, we're not aiding, we're not receiving aid, because we need to. Our continent has full infrastructure, fast moving trains move at the speed of light to be able to deliver things, and you can move across the continent at speed, like how Europe is set up, So when we are at that point, Babawa, that is when the true success, the true effect of the AfCFTA will be felt. It doesn't mean that we're not going to see the effects soon. It just means that we're going to have to get our continent to the point where that infrastructure development, manufacturing plants, all of those kind of things have to still be built. Standard Bank, I know this for a fact, is that one of their key issues 10 years ago was focusing on, that's when they were, that's when the whole thing about Africa, Standard Bank in Africa was considered, is that it was, Africa's our home, we drive our growth. And that was where they were talking about in terms of developing and funding that infrastructure to get us to this point. So those are the kind of things, if you think about it. I've got a colleague that is from Ghana, that we're in this African Union session today, or this whole week. I'm in Zambia. I took a 2-hour flight, which is like from Johannesburg to Cape Town. And, I was fine, no drama, except for going through, international. She had to spend 2 days traveling from Ghana to Zambia. And we're not that far away. It's easier to go to London. It's easier to go to Paris and New York than it is to actually come to our own countries on the continent. So these are the kind of things that would have to be fully effected in order for the AfCFTA to realize its complete and utter full potential when it's on flames, as Linda would say.
Thank you very much for that, Yavi. You really are passionate about this, and especially the barriers and the injustices. I don't want to double click on that when I'm sitting with you. Linda, welcome to the panel. You've missed out. We were singing your praises, narrating all the awards and the nominations that you've received. Welcome.
Thank you.
On that note, Linda, I'm glad you've sorted out your technical issues and you're able to join us. On that note, if you can just tell us, how is the Africa Free Trade Agreement delivering on its promises to unlock the potential of for women in Africa? How is it doing in delivering on that promise?
What I can say is that for it to deliver its promises fully, governments should really partner with the private sector in the different countries to work hard on and to see how the AfCFTA can be implemented in the different countries. I can give an example with my country, Kenya. Right now, for the past few months, we have been working on the national AfCFTA strategy, which I was part of. And through this national AfCFTA strategy, which was being implemented by the government of Kenya, United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, as well as Trademark East Africa, we've been developing the strategy, the national strategy, to see how Kenyans can really leverage and fully maximize on the AfCFTA. And the biggest challenge is access to information, as Yavi has put it, capacity building, training. Most people in Kenya, from my standing point right now, people don't even know about AfCFTA. So when you start talking about how will it benefit the women and youth of Africa, how many of them do even know about AfCFTA? How many of them do even know about the benefits that AfCFTA will bring to us? So for us to fully maximize and tap into the potentials of the AfCFTA, we really need to pass information, because the people who will trade under AfCFTA are the private sector, the youth entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, persons with disability, the SMEs, MSMEs, all of them. We need to bring them on board for them to learn what they need to do, what needs to be done, how can they partner with the government for it to for them to be able to trade their goods. Maybe let's say taking something like this Masai Shuka from Kenya to South Africa, where do you need to start from? Like if today, let's say AfCFTA comes to operationalization fully, how can we start exporting our products? Where do you need to start from? Do you need to have documents? Do you need to pay taxes? How can you transfer them? Like when they say about tariff and non-tariff barriers, does it mean that you won't have to pay duties, customs, taxes from the point of origin to the destination country? So a lot needs to be done at a country level, leave alone the bigger level of the African Union and as well as the AfCFTA offices in Ghana. We need to first sort our issues in-house, because if we don't sort our issues in-house, it will just be like the normal trade agreements that we've been having like the AGOA, Kenya, Tanzania trade, Kenya, Uganda trade, because as much as we still have those opportunities, we haven't maximized on it as entrepreneurs because we don't know how to go about it. But if we can be guided, if we can know where to start from, if we can have an agency that gives us all documentation and information on what needs to be done, then we can fully take advantage of this. And that's why I applaud Yavi, because she's really been doing a lot on AfCFTA, sensitizing the youth and women online on what needs to be done through these masterclasses, through webinars, through tweet chats. I can really say we need to partner with organizations like PABWA, like Standard Bank, to pass information and encourage governments to come partner with us, have access to information made easier, because we also need to simplify information for people in the grassroots. A woman in rural parts of Kenya, you need to make information easier and comprehensible to her in such a way that she needs to know if she's maybe planting avocados, how can her avocados get to, let's say, South Africa? How can the Kenyan tea get to Nigeria? How can the Kenyan coffee get to Ghana or Ethiopia? But if we don't make information much easier, comprehensible, and accessible, then we'll still be talking about this AfCFTA, even as, God forbid, the way Yavi has said she won't be there, we'll still be talking about these same issues that you're still discussing here. Yeah.
You can hear the passion from Pabwa. It's a Pabwa vibe, isn't it? Thank you so much for that, Linda. I'm just going to go over to our questions from our audience. We've got a question from Gwen Foster. Gwen is asking, how do we address developing knowledge and skills relating to agricultural records? Technology is changing the backdrop, supply chains, market data requirements, and financial factors, which can be uniting force. Who wants to take that one for us? Bernadette, you were very passionate about agriculture there. Perhaps it can be a shared effort in answering that question.
Yes, Babawa, I am passionate about agriculture because there is information that is accessible in a South African context in terms of I don't know if people get the reports or you can access the reports, but there is a report available that gives you, it's a full agricultural report with everything that sits under that banner, all the products that sit in that suite of agriculture, in terms of opportunities, in terms of growth, in terms of how they can help the agricultural sector. I'm happy to share that with you, Babawa, and you can disseminate the information to the audience so that they can see the report and then they can access it whenever they feel the need to. But there is information based on that sector. Absolutely.
Thank you. We'll share that with our audience, with our attendees after the webinar. And then Offense is also talking about agriculture. Asking what is the minimum amount that the bank can finance in an agricultural finance? I don't think we can answer that today, Offense. Does it cover operational cost for first few years into scaling if the request is profitable? Is there any part that you want to answer there maybe?
So I guess, I mean, like everything that you fund or you finance or you lend to, there is a process that is adopted. And it's in terms of your entire business. What's your cash conversion cycle? What's your working capital needs? How much access to liquidity do you need? What does your operations look like? What do you have on your floor? What sits on your shelf? What is movable? Do you have off-takers? It's all those things that come into account, and what are the risks associated to each element of your business. I cannot say to you how long it takes. I cannot say to you what the minimum amount is. That just depends on the organization, your business as an individual or as an SME or as a female or youth individual. And I guess when the time comes and the funding is available that Standard Bank has committed to, then I guess all those criteria will be shared in terms of the agreements and what we're prepared to do. So unfortunately, I can't give you firm answers on that at this stage. But great question.
Yavi, if we can just come with a last question for you, what do you think is really the biggest structural barrier to, we don't want to get to the 1st of January 2022 and get to, another setback, finding out that there's another stumbling block. What is the biggest structural barrier to this whole thing being operational? Like what caused the delay, for example, now?
No. There wasn't a delay as such. So it should have gone live, so to speak. So when it became effective on the 1st of January 2021, it was meant to have been effective 1st of July 2020. COVID happened. But there was talk about, should we push it out? Shouldn't we push it out? So that was the debate for those 6 months. Sorry. And then they decided, no, they had to start. So the Secretariat, started something, started to move into spaces. And yeah, I go talking again. So there's no real delays. It's going according to plan. Yeah. And I'm going to do some more stuff.
So it's going according to plan. All right. We'll just give, while Yavi is drinking some water there, Linda, can you tell us, as young entrepreneurs, the 80% of our attendees and of our audience that will be downloading the webinar, women entrepreneurs, can you tell us, as young entrepreneurs, what advice would you give them now immediately as far as the free trade agreement is concerned in terms of tapping into that opportunity?
What I can advise them first is to make themselves familiar with what plans their governments have for them, because they can't trade with what the government hasn't planned for them in terms of negotiations, in terms of the goods that need to be exported to the different countries. Also, when it comes to exports under AfCFTA, we have the different export licenses, certifications, standards that the goods need to conform first for them to be able to be exported to other countries. So what I can advise them is that when things will get ready, they really need to be, even before people start exporting, they really need to be informed on what plans the government has. Because right now, from a situation in Kenya, what I can tell you, as an entrepreneur, if you don't look for the information yourself, you'll be left in the cold, because no one is really taking up that initiative to make people aware on what needs to be done. So you need to wake up, look for the information for yourself. And if you know other people who needs to be empowered with that information, share with them, whether on social media or WhatsApp groups. So what I can say first, they need to be informed on what needs to be done, because there's no need for you to get ready and everything. Then when you reach to the point of exit, then you're told, no, you haven't conformed to this and this. Then you need to go and start from step one. You see, that takes a lot of time. That takes a lot of money. That will also make one to break down. Maybe someone has taken a loan, let's say from Standard Bank or whatever financial institution. How will you pay back that money? And all this will be brought about by not being aware of what needs to be done. So first, be aware. Secondly, also, you need to make your goods to be of export quality. When I mean export quality is that if you're into the agricultural sector, familiarize yourself, because here in Kenya, we have the different regulatory agencies that are concerned with exporting of agricultural products. Go to them, learn from them what needs to be done from their side and what you need to do, and also what are the codes. Let's say maybe if there are codes that will need to be put on made in Kenya goods, what needs to be done on their sector, or maybe let's say on textiles, what you need to do, get information from them, and then start preparing yourself. Thirdly, of which will be the biggest challenge and the biggest barrier to women exporting, women and youth, is access to finance. If let's say Standard Bank is giving finance to women in Africa, are women and youth in Kenya privileged to such finance? We have a Standard Bank here in Kenya, and there's a program under them known as DADA, which is empowering women entrepreneurs through the DADA in Kenya, or through the Standard Bank in Kenya. How can the women and youth who want to export under AfCFTA get access to finance? Maybe it can be a different set of loan, maybe known as AfCFTA finance or something like that, that will make it different from these other financial arrangements that banks usually have for entrepreneurs. So let's say a woman or a youth who wants to export under AfCFTA can go to that AfCFTA desk in the Standard Bank, ask, get information, be told what needs to be done and everything. And even if they can connect them with markets, that can also be a better opportunity. Also for women, because like in Kenya, our biggest export opportunities are in the agricultural sector. I can advise the youth and the women to leverage on the different manufacturing hubs that we have in the country and export already finished goods, which are value-added products. Because for a case instance of a product known as cashew nuts in Kenya, 3/4 of the cashew nuts grown in Kenya goes to Asian countries for value addition, because most people don't know about value addition in the country, and value addition is where money is in the agricultural sector. So if the women in the different African countries can get into the agricultural value addition sector, that will also be a great opportunity for them to maximize on AfCFTA. And lastly, please take advantage of Yavi. Don't let her rest. She's the women's face on AfCFTA in Africa. Please, please, please get her on all social media platforms. Even if it's her email, I'll give you. Be informed on what are the steps being taken currently on the protocol of women on AfCFTA. Make sure you are well informed. Make sure you are well prepared, because if we don't prepare ourselves as the women and youth, there's no way we are going to trade under AfCFTA. Now we'll be talking about getting some funny opportunities under AfCFTA, which will not be according to what we need to do. Also for the youth, besides trade in goods, also trade in services through your different educational background certificates and the skills that you have. You can also tap into AfCFTA through your skills, through your education, through the knowledge that you have. You don't have to be trading in goods for you to be able to benefit. You can look for job opportunities under AfCFTA. Let's say you've done finance or accounts. Talk to Bernadette if there are job opportunities at Standard Bank in South Africa. See what needs to be done. Talk to you, Lady Babalwa. What are the opportunities in your country? Yavi is in Zambia right now. What are the opportunities that the youth can tap, or the women can tap, through their different expertise, skills, and knowledge, and get to benefit from it? We need to shift the discussion from just trading goods We need to talk a lot about trade in services. People need to know if their academic qualifications from Kenya can get them jobs in South Africa, can get them jobs in Ghana, Nigeria, what have you. People in the sports industry, creative industry. Can you come from Kenya today and go and start, let's say, a stand-up comedy show in South Africa? Can you come from Kenya today and go and start a fashion design company in Nigeria? Can you come from Kenya today and go and start an arts company in Egypt? What do you need to do? Can you start a fintech company, let's say in Zambia? How can you start up these things? If we can get information fully, then through the different, because we're talking about creating employment opportunities and economic empowerment opportunities, all these will be created through skills, knowledge, goods, expertise that we have as the youth and women of Africa. Let's say like you, Babalo, maybe like the good top that you're wearing. If you want to sell it in Kenya, how can you start with it? If you want to open, let's say, a consultancy company, a communications company in Kenya, how can you start? You see, if we get such kind of information, then we can be able to tap on our different potentials, not only create employment opportunities for ourselves, but also create employment opportunities for others, and even partner with the different governments to bring other youth or other women from different countries on board and have the different knowledge and skills that we have in diverse as Africans, not only benefiting us, benefiting our continent, industrializing our continent, and also making Africa to be like them. Is it the spot, the global spot of the world? Because everyone will be, if you're willing to start a fintech company in Africa, look for the youth, let's say in Zambia, who are trading under AfCFTA on knowledge and skills to benefit themselves. Go partner with them, go put all the finances there. Governments should also have incubation hubs that are not only for the people in their countries, but a hub that if a youth who's good at fintech, agri-tech, health tech comes to Zambia today, South Africa today, how can they use their knowledge to better the youth of, to better the citizens of Zambia, to better the citizens of South Africa? So we really need to tap the potential that we have for our people. Yes.
Thank you for that, Linda. Linda's trying to make up for that time when she was offline. Hey. And thank you for the top compliments. I wait especially for you, Linda. We've got Linda, we've got Amanda is just, and this is just a comment really, and this is what I was trying to get to earlier on when I asked, is the information available? Because there's need for education, not just on customs level, but everybody needs to be educated in terms of the opportunities. Here we have Amanda Nyoni saying that plainly speaking, the information is not available or accessible. And it's not just a Kenyan problem only. So I just wanted to highlight that to you and Yavi as well, that, yes, we're talking about 5 webinars a week on the same conversation, but a lot of people feel that the information is not available on the how to. We've got a question here, Yavi, that I would love for you to answer. Pumza Chuena is asking, how will we as a continent navigate all the treaty agreements we have with the international countries? We continue to accept or sign new trade agreements with international countries while we're building the AfCFTA. Won't this be a barrier to our efforts?
So first I want to address Linda. So now you know why Linda is the head of Pabua's youth desk. Now you guys will get it, right? So also to answer some of the people that are answering, you'll find me on social media, and my name is a hectic Indian name, but that's why you'll find me. But Linda is on Twitter, is Africa's youngest billionaire, and now you know why. And that's how you'll find her on Twitter. So between Linda and I, there's information that is populated at least daily, if not more. Whenever I'm on a webinar, it's there. I write blogs, I write information, and I'm starting a video series the moment I get back to South Africa next week. So there is information coming. We're also just, we're waiting for a lot of the information to get finalized so that we can start to put it out there. But we will. So just to answer some of that, people are concerned they're not getting enough information. Then to go back to the treaties. So because the AfCFTA is all member states were asked to become signatories to it. You only needed 22 signatures, and it obviously got 28 in 2018, and so it has moved on. All other trade agreements and treaties obviously then have to be renegotiated, relooked at, and being able to fit into new things. So that is why I also said this is not a short-term process. This is not going to get done, come January 1st, 2022. We're going to be like, oh, let's go start. There's a whole lot. If you look at AGOA, for example, we've got a couple of more years left of it. We really haven't maximized the opportunity on AGOA. So let's look at AGOA in terms of the context of the AfCFTA. I'm looking at it currently. I look at it, one of my, Pabwa is my activism. It's the information. It's where I want to empower women and make sure that women have the information and get what they need to get. And I'm very passionate about it. So if you need information, just ask me. I promise I will come back to you. Or Linda will come back to you. But also to be able to bring the diaspora into our lives, because there are people that came from Africa that are sitting in the US that want to be part of Africa. So that is how we're looking at how to incorporate, AGOA, AfCFTA, and how to re-look and review and look at what do we do with all of these trade agreements now and what happens to them. So there's a lot of work that has to go by. It's not just a quick answer that I can say, this is it or this is not. There's a lot of work that has to go into it. There's a lot of legal frameworks that have got to be reviewed and relooked at. So everyone there's conflict resolution issues. There's, but it spoke about NTBs right at the very beginning. So there's various things that need to be looked at. It's a massive framework that needs to be attacked, but we have to start. As incomplete as it is, we have to start. When I say incomplete, in all of these kind of things need to be finalized. We have to start and then work our way forward. Otherwise, if we wait for it to be completely finished, then I will be dead. All of us here will be done, and we'll never see the beginning of it. So this is where, we need to just think about how these things fit into each other and how they work. It's like a puzzle piece. You need to have all puzzle pieces to start moving forward. So yeah.
Thank you for that, Yavi. We have now reached the end of our conversation. I just want to mention something that I just saw something about Brand South Africa there. Somebody was saying that Brand South Africa is doing a lot, promoting a lot in terms of the Africa Free Trade Agreement. So perhaps to just access their portals as well and to see what information they have could be helpful. I will ask now our speakers just to give us a final word, a word of departure. It can be from where we are at now or what needs to be done. Bernadette, from your side, any parting words?
Thank you, Babova. Battling to find my unmute button. I guess, from a banking financial institution perspective, and as I said right at the beginning, Africa is our home and we drive her growth. And we at the group truly believe in that, and we truly are committed to it. I know it's a long journey, and I know there's lots of questions around funding, financing, and what's our next. And with Yavi and Linda, so passionate in this sphere, especially with the women and youth, I think you've got a huge amount of leveraging to do off of them, and you can leverage off the group as well. We represented in 19 countries, 20 countries, with most of them part of the AfCFTA, and our commitment to ensuring that hopefully I'm not dead, I might be retired, I'm sure I will be by whenever that happens. But yeah, let's do this together. We can only grow together to make things better for our continent.
Thank you, Bernadette. And truly, really, as I said earlier, that, this agreement is a testament more than anything, a testament of the power of cooperation and a shared vision. Any parting words from you, Linda? Yavi, I think we'll leave you for last. You might give us a loaded. Yes, Linda, any parting words from you?
Yeah, what I'd like to encourage everyone who's tuned into this webinar is that the Africa we need, the Africa we want, the Africa we aspire to see will be created through the AfCFTA, through trade in goods, through trade in services. We are the ones to lift our continent to what we want to see it. For long, we've been labeled as the dark continent. We can't be a dark continent if we fully maximize on our agricultural sectors, value addition sector, manufacturing sectors, to bring Africa to be the industrialized African continent, to be the industrialized face of the world that we always talk about China. So if we want to see a changed Africa, each and every one of us can contribute in each and every way, through webinars like this, through tweet chats, through passing information in different ways, through utilizing on organizations like PABWA to pass information. Each and every one of us has a role to play in their different ways. We all can't be traders, or we all can't be educators and going to different countries, but we can play our own different roles, our own different parts in different ways to make people aware of the potential that we have or what they need to do. And for that, we need to synergize. We need to always work together. We need to always have such webinars more and more often. We need to always bring people on board, like a webinar like this. Send the links to your friends on WhatsApp groups, social medias, make them aware of what is currently happening. Information doesn't have to come from government alone on AfCFTA. Information will come from different sectors, and it is through such platforms that people who've joined in, like the participants who've joined in today, were able to get information not from their government, but through the different brains that have been able to attend this webinar as either participants or either as panelists. And through this, we can be able to synergize together, use that information to move our nations forward, to move our business forward, especially the women and youth entrepreneurs. We should always hold each other, support each other, make our business known to other people in our countries as well as outside. If you know of export opportunities in the different countries, share with people. Let us hold each other's hand. Let us support each other. Let us use the different avenues and platforms to support each other and pass information. And through this, we'll find that information on AfCFTA, opportunities on AfCFTA will be easily accessible, easily digestible, easily conceptualized by different people. If we can leverage on the powers that we have with each other, simplify information, share information, as well as partner together. So I would like to thank you for organizing this webinar. I'm so sad that Kenyans, East Africans, weren't as active as South Africans in this. I hope next time we will have a bigger percentage of East Africans attending this webinar. I'm looking forward to attending more of these webinars, God willing. PABWA, please, Yavi, make sure that such webinars are really marketed, really advertised, really sent everywhere. And we need also to have government people on board from different countries, not only as participants, but also as panelists. Next time, if you organize something like this, I can bring the different government of Kenya officials on trade on board so that they can educate the participants who will be on the next webinar, God willing, on how they can tap into the Kenyan market, and also what strides and steps the Kenyan government has been able to achieve on AfCFTA, so that you can be able to know if your country is letting you behind, or if your country is as active as Kenya, whom we are really looking forward to. Maybe, God willing, we'll also have a big AfCFTA office here in Nairobi one day. But Kenya, trust me, will be the leader when it comes to AfCFTA, and I'm looking towards that. When people will be talking about success stories on AfCFTA, Kenya will always be the benchmark of all African countries, as much as are more from South Africa and West Africa, but Kenya will be the lead. Yes.
Linda, you'd want to start a fight here now. Let's leave it at that. But to answer your question as to why Kenya was not that active this morning, the whole of Kenya had the same technical issues you had.
Oh, yes, I can understand.
Thank you very much, Linda. Yavi, your final words from you, and please take your time because you are sitting with the expertise when it comes to this.
You know, it makes my heart happy to hear Linda speak the way that she does, and I always get excited when she speaks, because she speaks such, you know, she makes everything very practical, whereas I talk very high level and, you know, like, how are we going to move forward? She makes it very tangible and practical. People love that, to be able to understand, okay, what is the next step and how to take it forward. And that's what we need. We need to be able to, like she was saying, hold hands and be able to understand that this is what's, this is the next step. This is what's going to happen, because there is a lot of white noise. There is a lot of information actually out there, but nobody knows what they don't know. So they don't know, should I go and understand that? What do I need to understand? Why do I need to understand that? And I'm not, I don't normally do this, but I saw the messages. I'm like, wow, these people I feel so bad. So, we are planning, like we've got a video series coming about literally breaking it down, making people understand. The first thing actually is how to say it. It drives me nuts because people won't say it properly. They say CTA and all kinds of things. This is our African thing. We must own it. If we don't own it from beginning to end, it is not. If people say your name wrong, you get cross, right? So let us start to understand how to say it, as difficult as it is, tongue twister, all the different languages across the continent. Let's say it properly. So we have to own it. I think from that perspective, let us start owning it in that respect. Make a date with yourself, at least every weekend. Find an hour between, wherever you're going partying, find an hour just to Google and go, what is happening? You'll get the most up-to-date piece of information. In my closing statement, I think this is what I'm unapologetic. I do get called idealistic sometimes about the AfCFTA. I'm intentional about that. If Americans had put something out, they own it until all of us are saying it. If the British or the Europeans do something, we start saying it. So we need to start being unapologetic about our own things. You have the likes of Standard Bank and other organizations pumping huge amounts of money into this. We need to be unapologetic about this. Get up, look for the information, find it. We also don't necessarily have the information given to us on the platter. We have to go and find it. I have to follow up. I have to ask. I have to say, actually, this morning, because I've been consumed with other things, I sent a message and I said, listen, what is the most recent I'm going on to a webinar. Is there anything that has happened in the past 3 days that I need to know about in case I come on and, I don't know? So this becomes the thing, is that we've got to actively own it. That's ownership. Ownership is when you actually look for it and you use it. You ask questions about it if you don't know. If I don't have an answer for you, I'll find out. I'll come back to you. This is what we need to do. This is our last chance. We are either going to be a poor, poverty-stricken continent for the rest of our friggin' lives, or we are going to use this opportunity to say, let us find our way to each other, and let us make sure that we figure out how to buy from each other, how to share information, how to learn about each other's cultures, how to say, I want to wear that from Nigeria. I want to taste that from Kenya. I want to feel what that fabric feels like. I want to smell the cinnamon from Tanzania. These are the kind of things that we need to embrace. We need to immerse ourselves in terms of being African, because that's where it starts. The made in Africa thing is that, and I spoke about the wine intentionally earlier on, is that, we have a tendency to look at European, I'll say European wine or champagne, because that's where it comes from, and brand-wise and those kind of things we get attracted to and aspire to. That becomes aspirational for us. But we have stuff that is of equal or better quality in terms of various things that are made right here in this continent. Coffee, MCC, because it's obviously not wine. These are the kind of things that, people come from a tourism perspective to come and taste, to come and feel, to come and see on the African continent. We need to appreciate it. We need to embrace it. When we adjust that mentality and buy from, because we want to feel it, we want to see it, we want to understand it, that is going to be the root, the root of success of the AfCFTA. Because unless we want to buy the products, cross-border trade doesn't matter. Unless we actually want to buy from each other, the cross-border trade is not, it's not going to matter. So this is we have to start with the psychological adjustment. By the way, in respect of that, there is going to be a Made in Africa protocol around, so the formalities and the policies around Made in Africa but our psychological adjustment around wanting to be part of the continent, wanting to feel and be, African, not just by what we look like, but by all sense of who we are, and owning the African sun. These are the kind of things that we need to start understanding. I sound idealistic, but if you think about it, if we start to compare one product from here versus a product that we think we are aspiring to, and we find all of a sudden better value in it, that is the secret. That's the game changer in terms of why the AfCFTA will be successful. So it starts with each one of us.
And very, very true. It's a huge psychological adjustment indeed. You make me want to say, like Naomi Campbell, a Mandela, owning the African sun, a Mandela. Thank you so much for your time, Yavi. Thank you, Bernadette, for the time that you've put aside to share with us. Thank you very much, Linda, and to all of our audience. Yavi, sorry, before I go, there's actually one question that I just wanted to squeeze in, if I may.
Sure.
Alive Nikki is asking, what are the priority industries from the AfCFTA perspective?
Yes.
And is there a universal criteria across Africa, or are there niche markets from country to country? Perhaps if you can just answer that.
No, so there hasn't been niche market, so to speak, but it will be by default, I suppose, if we can put it that way. But the priority industries are agriculture. So to make Bernadette very happy, agriculture is our priority. Africa has enough land to feed the world. So agriculture is a massive opportunity, but also a focus area. Oil, gas, motor vehicles, and obviously, so when we say agriculture, just think about everything: maize, peanuts, wine, just about everything falls under agriculture. So because we generally think of like food products or consumables, shall we call it. So that is a definite priority. The one thing that I do want to say, and I'm so sorry I never said it earlier, but now that you raise it, is services. So when we think of trade, we very rarely think about trade services or servicification of trade. And that is the low-hanging fruit, to use a terrible term, but it is one of the opportunities, because lots of Africa or large parts of Africa are involved in service businesses. So, consultancies, information, legal firms, all different, AfCFTA consulting. There's all different types of services that are available that are able to meet certain criteria easier than actual products, which will have a lot more criteria, if I can put it that way. So there's huge, there's different types of focus areas, and those are the ones that are being looked at, as the key areas, or the focal for now, immediately as we move forward. So asante sana to all of you, and thank you so much for this engaging chat. It has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very, very much on behalf of Pabwa. We loved every minute of it, right, Linda?
Thank you very much for that, Yavi. It was an absolute pleasure having you. To all of our audience, I just want to remind you that the full webinar will be available on the Top Women website or the Topco Media website for you to share with whoever was not able to join us today, anyone that you feel would benefit from the information. Thank you, everybody, for your time, and let us move together and work together towards the Africa that we want. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You are bold, you are strong, nothing can stop you. Now is your time. Rewrite history. Introducing the Standard Bank Top Women Conference 2021, bringing together a diverse group of global female thought leaders. A space where powerful women band together and rise by lifting each other. Embrace your differences because they are your advantage. Use your voice loud and clear as we unite to not only take our seat at the table, but reshape it. Be the change. Be a top woman.